You are wondering, what am I up to? Why would I have chunks of obsidian, a jar of sodium silicate, and blocks of wood sitting here on this table? You know, when some pieces get too small to properly secure into a saw, you know, it's just easier to glue them on a chunk of wood. And that's what we're talking about today. And this is what we're doing. I did these a couple weeks ago, and they are ready to get mounted in the saw. And we're going to talk about orientation, different things that you can use other than the sodium silicate, and as well as other options for slab grabbers and other devices you designed to grab rocks to put in your vise of your slab saw or your larger trim saws. So this is very easy. I mean, we can't get any easier. You figure out what sizes a block you need for your purpose. You orient the cut face the way you want it to hit up against the saw for its first initial cut, and brush it on and glue it on. And it's that simple. And here, I'll show you. The stuff is water soluble too, so cleans up really well. That's all you do, just brush it on. Now, sodium silicate is kind of expensive, so that's why I'm going to talk to you about some other options. But I use what works good for me and my procedures. What you choose to use is up to you. There's really no wrong way of doing this. As long as the rock stays secure and will not fall off, and now that just basically sets until it dries. That's all we're doing. It is about the simplest lapidary task we've got. So let me show you some of the other adhesive items that we can use for this exact same procedure. So here are some of the most common adhesives that are used for gluing your rocks onto a block of wood so you can continue cutting them in a slab saw. Of course, the sodium silicate solution, water glass, a new pint I had to get. This is getting kind of down there. Probably enough to do another 20 to 30, maybe 40 more blocks of wood. Mr. Van Dyke uses wood glue, and he has very good luck with it. Others will use the Gorilla Glue. Now, I use water glass because in 24 to 48 hours, the remaining slab that's left here on the rock, you just dump in a bucket of water, and it releases in a very short period of time. Then you set the block out in the sunshine and in the wet, just outside. In a few weeks, it's ready to reuse. But those will work. Any good adhesive that is kind of a permanent nature, that has a very high tensile strength, that can hang on to stuff very well, will work. You don't want one of these coming off of the block of wood when you're cutting. That could be bad for your saw blade. So make sure you do the test to yank and twist and pull and do everything you can with a block that's been glued on to make sure it will stay put. There's also something else too that I learned not too long ago. Let's put these aside. This is like a Bondo for your car, for body work. And this actually particular piece came from Frank Newman down at New Pine Creek. We bought this from him just as is. The wife fell in love with this pattern of this, I think it's a spider jasper from Australia is what it is. And she fell in love with it. And so I asked him how much it is mounted on the block. Gave us a price. We bought it. So that's pretty cool. But this is another way of doing it. And he just literally cuts through the wood as well to take it off. He cuts all the way down to the wood. So there's 3 different methods of four different methods actually of securing your rocks to a block of wood so you can continue cutting them. But there's also things called slab grabbers. And let me get all this here cleaned off, get all this stuff here cleaned off, and show you what the 4 different slab grabbers I have, and let you know that there's something that's been recently developed that's coming down the pipe for slab grabbers. Here are the 4 slab grabbers that I have. You can see how they are the rock flat face forward is mounted into this. And these are screwed down. And generally this one here is here to lock it in place. And there's supposed to be another nut on here to help lock it in place. And basically that secures the rock. And it fits in the vise this way. So the vise is coming in and it clamps in this way. The saw blade's here and we'll cut this way here. Now, something I don't like about these is it's harder to orient the rock in a certain way so you can have a flat side directly at the saw blade. So this one here, the saw blade's coming in from this way here, or will be over on this side. Look at that sharp angle on here. This makes it a little bit more difficult to cut because the saw blade will want to always deflect on this very steep slope here. So what I typically will do is on my blocks of wood, I will have the block of wood oriented so the flattest face is facing the edge of the saw. So it's going to sit in there like this. The saw will come right down in here, and that's a nice good surface for the saw to hit on and reduce deflection of the saw blade. That's the downside with these. A positive is you don't need to drag out something like this, a paintbrush, and then have to wait for 24 hours for that to dry. You can mount this up immediately, take it over the saw, and cut it immediately. So there's the advantage with this. This one here is probably the biggest piece of junk I have. So I'll probably never use this one again. I've used it a couple times with mixed results. This one here is a much bigger one, as you can tell. And I've used this for some bigger rocks without a problem. I've had one rock pop out of it, and it was my own fault. But it mounts top and bottom like this. The rock faces in here, and then it just gets mounted into the saw blade or into the vise. I've also mounted rocks inside this piece over here on this side with very good success. And then this one here is another cheaper one, but it seems to work much better than that blue one does. And clamps in right here for my type of saw. And just put it in and start cutting it. And see, I'll start the first cut right here and just work its way over. Now, you have to be a little cautious around those saw blades getting into the metal screws. I have not had that happen to me yet. I've been very close. And I don't know, I've heard mixed results. I've heard some people say, oh, it's not going to affect anything. It's not going to hurt your blade. And I've heard some people say, no, it strips the diamonds off your blade. So word of caution, when you set these up, make sure that your saw blade does not get into the face of these screws. The next one I'll throw a picture of it up here if I find one. It's called the Slabosaurus. There's a ton of different screw holes for these screws here for the different patterns. And it looks pretty useful. And I want to get my hands on one. A buddy of mine in Dallas has one, and he absolutely loves it. And it looks like they're going to be out on the market here very soon. And I think there's pre-orders being taken. You can do a Facebook search on Slabosaurus. Now, why would somebody want to use one of these techniques? Well, it's to finish your slabbing process, so you can slab the entire rock. Some people are good enough to use like a 10-inch trim saw and be able to run it by hand. My hands are not that good. I actually will use my vise on my 10-inch to do mini slabs as well, and I've done that quite a bit. It's just how I work. I have no problem using a mechanical advantage to make the product better. And that's what you're doing here. You're developing some sort of mechanical advantage to make what you're doing better or easier and more precise. So I have a bunch of these to go get glued up. A lot more than what's just here. Faces are all ready on them, basically. You've seen what I did with the other one. And I'm going to glue a bunch onto these and get them ready so I can start running them through the saw and be done with it. But let's go put this one in the saw. Now that I have the block installed in the vise, you can see how I have it lined up very close with the saw blade. Looking at the back side, you can see how the saw blade is making proper contact with the stone. This way here, there will not be deflection. Well, I went ahead and got them all glued on. And you see all the flat edges are a little bit of an angle. That's so the saw blade can meet up with it the easiest. And the other saw just finished too, so I've got to get back over there and move it. Take this first cut out and move it. Not too bad. This is an advantage over a slab grabber. How much money would you spend on slab grabbers to do all of these at one time to have them ready to go? Most of this is scrap lumber. And the cost of your water glass or your sodium silicate solution, wherever you can find it, it's all over the place. You can get it at Home Depot. I just chose this here from, what is it? Penguin Pottery Supply, because I've seen another rockhound use it. Or another lapidary person use it. So I used what somebody else used. It's expensive, but you know, I've never had one break off. So, yep, they're all glued up. They'll dry for 24 hours. And I have got days and days and days of cutting. Okay, the first cut is done. The rock is still there. No issues whatsoever. So now you've seen multiple ways of mounting, gluing, attaching, affixing your rock that you want to continue cutting to a block of wood or using a slab grabber or something like that so you can continue cutting it. One thing about those slab grabbers, I would not recommend using Obsidian with them. Use a harder item like agate, jasper, something like that, but don't use Obsidian. Continue to use, I would use this method for Obsidian. So with that, I'll let you guys go. Just remember, everyone's life's an adventure. Then there's mine out here, cutting more Obsidian. This is the adventures of JawsJr. Have a good one, everybody. See ya!